Hello, folks. Dustin Zarni here, Onondaga County Democratic Elections Commissioner. Today is Tuesday. It is March 5th, and Super Tuesday, as it's known, because about 15 or so states are having their presidential primaries, but not us. We are not having our presidential primary in New York until April 2nd, and in fact, we have an election coming up before that, and that's the March village elections. And that's what I wanted to talk to you about today. Now, this podcast is Onondaga County focused. I'm going to be talking about the villages in Onondaga County that are having elections. But March elections for villages are 2 weeks from today, for March 19th, all throughout New York State. If you live in a village, not a city, not a town, but in a village, you actually have options to have your election. The village has options to have their election either on in March, in June, or in November. And in Onondaga County, we have 5 villages that are having elections this March 19th. They are the villages of Fayetteville, villages of Manoa, the villages of Baldwinsville, the village of Fabius, and the village of Marcellus. Now, if you have your elections in March or June, the village has an option to have the Board of Elections run it, or they run it themselves. And of the 5 villages having elections in March, Baldwinsville, Fayetteville, and Manoa are run by the Onondaga County Board of Elections. The village in Marcellus and in Fabius run their own elections. That means the village clerk is running it. And so because the village clerk is running those elections, I don't have much information about those. So I'm not going to be talking too much about those 2 elections. But I can tell you the village of Fayetteville, village of Manoa, and the village of Baldwinsville are run by the Board of Elections, and we will be running those elections on Tuesday, March 19th. Now, when an election is in March, unlike in November, there is no early voting. Except for this year, there's early voting by mail, which is a new thing and a new program, and it's really starting with the March village elections. It's the first time that we're going to put it in, although the special elections down in New York City and Nassau this last February actually started the early voting by mail program. But in Onondaga County, it'll be these 5 villages that are having it. Again, even the villages run by the village clerk have to do some form of early voting by mail. That being said, so there is no early voting where you can vote in person. And so your 2 options are early voting by mail or absentee, a mail ballot of some kind, or voting in person on March 19th. Now, the villages of Manoa and Baldwinsville, their polls are open from noon to 9. But the village of Fayetteville, their polls are open from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. The village of Fayetteville, they have their polling location is the village of Fayetteville office. Village of Baldwinsville is the village of Baldwinsville office, and Manoa is the Manoa Municipal Building. All 5 villages have information on our website at onvote.net. You can go to the village page. It'll tell you polling hours and where the locations are and how to contact and get information and who to contact and who's running the elections. All of that's going for it. Now, of the 3 village elections that we run, there are competitive races for mayor and village board in, at least competitive races for village board in Baldwinsville, mayor and village board in Fayetteville, and the offices in Manoa are uncontested, which means that the people that are running uncontested. There is always a possibility of a write-in campaign, but as of this moment, there are no declared contested races in Manoa. All three villages have propositions. Manoa has a standard village proposition. I'm not really even sure what it's about. It's on the ballot. I believe it's something about bonding. And you can check that out on the sample ballot at onvote.net. But there are propositions in Fayetteville and Baldwinsville about moving their elections, including dual propositions in Baldwinsville about where to move those elections to. So I'll talk about those in a little bit. But the village of Baldwinsville elections, there are several people contesting the village board. And there are 3 village board seats, and they're all being contested by 3 people. But all 6 people that are involved in that election, they are running in a nonpartisan sense, which means that they have not declared a major party candidacy. That's tradition. It's not law, but a lot of villages decide that they don't want to run in major parties. They're just running on the independent line. And in Baldwinsville, that's what's happening. Those people are running on their own lines. We now got signatures from independent, from all kinds of different voters, and are on the ballot. In the village of Fayetteville, there are, ironically, they're on the mayor's side. You may remember that Mark Olson, who is a longtime county legislator, the county legislator and longtime mayor of the village of Fayetteville, have decided not to run again. So the deputy mayor, Mike Smalls, who's running on a non-party line, is running for that seat, and town board member Sarah Bollinger is running on a independent line and on the Democratic line there. Then there are 3 people vying for 2 seats on the village board. Casey Cleary Hammerstedt is running on the Democratic line and on an independent line. And then I forgot the names of the others. I know the Democrats because I just interviewed them last night, and we're going to have them on the Thursday or Friday Zoom with Zardy. So check that out. But there are 2 others, one incumbent and 2 incumbents that are running. I think Dan Kinsella and Jane. Jane Rice are the incumbents. By the way, interesting thing, just as if you're running on a non-party line doesn't mean you're not a registered voter. Dan Kinsella and Jane Rice and Casey Cleary, they're all Democrats. But Casey's running on the Democratic line while the other 2 decided not to run on the Democratic line. So those are the people that are running out in Fayetteville. Now, if you want to request an absentee ballot from those 3 villages, you can still do so. We have absentee ballots requests going on at the Board of Elections. Technically, the deadline is 15 days before the election, which was yesterday. But at the Onondaga County Board of Election, we have a policy in place that if you request it, we will mail it out. The deadline is not a hard deadline, which 15 days. What it says is it's the deadline to be guaranteed to mail out a ballot. But at Onondaga County, we've been able to mail out ballots up until the Saturday before the election. And we'll continue to do that for these elections as well. And you can go on to onvote.net and request an absentee ballot. And we'll mail it out to you. Or you can show up at the polling places at the polling times, at the polling locations on March 19th for those 3 villages. So I wanted to get into, I talked a little bit about the candidates. Again, I'll be interviewing a slate of candidates for the Baldwinsville election as well for next week. And because they're talking about their moving their elections as well. But there are dueling propositions in Baldwinsville. that I wanted to talk about because it's kind of neat. It's something that I've never seen before. But there was a lot of talk about moving the village elections out of March in Baldwinsville. The village board decided they wanted to move the village elections to June, but a citizen-led petition by led by Vicky Frylu, who happens to be the Lysander Democratic chair, but was doing this as a village resident, did a citizen-led petition that it wanted to move it to November. These things were happening both at the same time. And so now we have two propositions on the Baldwinsville ballot, one to move it to June, one to move it to November. And you can vote yes on both of those propositions, or you can vote no on both, or decide, oh, you know what, I like November but not June, or I like June, not November. These are choices. Now, the question that has been asked of me several times is, what happens if both of those propositions pass? And the answer is, I don't know, because we've never seen this happen in New York, anywhere that we've been able to look for what's going on. Usually you don't have these two countervailing propositions. It could mean that neither one of them gets passed at that point, because the voters are giving alternative are giving conflicting orders to the village. So it is possible if both of them pass, then the village election will stay in March, and no one will be happy. So that is something that if you're in the village of Baldwinsville, you might want to think about which one you want to move your election to, either June or November, or maybe not both. But again, it's your choice. You're the voter. The same thing is happening in Fayetteville, except for not dueling proposition, just one proposition, a citizen-led proposition, organized by Casey Cleary, who's happened to run for the village board as well, is asking to move the elections from March to November. And it's been, I've talked about village elections several times on my podcast here, and in the spirit of being honest, I don't want to say that I don't have a position on this, but I will say this, because I've talked about it many times. I am absolutely of the mindset that villages and elections should be held in November. I think that they're and run by the Board of Elections, but it is up to the will of the voters. And these propositions that are being considered, it will be up to the voters in Baldwinsville and Fayetteville whether you do that or not. There's been a few media articles about this and some speculation about the pros and cons. I think you should take a look at the last Eagle Bulletin article I posted on my Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, all of that, which went through a lot of the pros and cons. The pros are you save money. If you move to November, the Board of Elections will pay for everything because we're already running an election there. You have higher voter turnout, and that is higher voter turnout even if you're on the end of the ballot. The villages of Solvay, Tully, and East Syracuse, and who else? Oh, and Solvay, Tully, East Syracuse, and Elbridge have all moved to November in the last few years. They saw no noticeable change in their election styles. Some of them stayed partisan, some of them didn't. Some of them stayed nonpartisan, I should say. They've had more competitive elections in the sense of more people were actually competing, but you saw anywhere from 150% to 900% more turnout. That means people actually voting in the village elections more in November than in March, despite it being on the end of the ballot. The cons, and I'll try to be as honest as possible about this, even though I'm a pro, moving elections. The cons, that the people who vote against it say it's tradition. It's worked well for 175 years. That's their quote, not mine. And that the elections are that village elections in March have a special emphasis on the villages, and they get lost in the national rhetoric if they're moved to November. That's, their arguments. I'm sure there's more arguments on both the pro and con side, but I wanted to put that out there. This is interesting. We're going to have some really interesting elections on March 19th, and we'll have to see how this plays out going forward, because there's also talk that in June, when the Liverpool holds their village elections, that they will also be having a proposition to move it on into November. Right now, 5 villages out of the 15 in Onondaga County have them in November. And if these 3 move, then we'll have about half of the villages having their elections in November. And there's others that may be looking at it in the next few years. So it's definitely something that is, is happening. It's not infrequent anymore. And I think the cost of running elections, the complexities of running elections are starting to catch up to some of these villages. And that's why they're looking at least having the Board of Elections run their elections and not have the villages run their elections. Now, I wanted to say a little bit about Marcellus and Fabius. We don't run those elections. I've already started getting calls about Marcellus, and sometimes just informational calls, and that's fine. We're happy to give out information, but we don't run the elections. We don't design the ballots. They're not even using our equipment. In Marcellus and Fabius, they're totally run by the village clerks, and they are the ones who will follow all the rules. And they do have rules for these elections that they have to follow. So I'm going to respectfully decline to answer a lot of village elections about those 2 if you ask me, and refer you to the village clerks in both of those villages. So the next 2 weeks, that's what we're going to be talking about on my content, is village elections, because that's what's the most important thing that's happening right now. And that means my content this week is Friday. I'll be doing a Zoom with Zarni with the Fayetteville Village Democrats. And then this weekend, I'll be doing a weekly wonk, hopefully, because I've been having trouble getting this done. But I'm going to do at least one weekly wonk between now and March 19th with the villages of Baldwinsville and Fayetteville in there, talking about what their demographics look like and how it's been trending. So I'll probably do a weekly wonk of them together this weekend. And then, of course, the next week I will also do a Zoom with Zarni with the Baldwinsville candidates that have been organized by Vicky Frylu and, who aren't running on the Democratic line but are coming on my program anyways. Because we're going to be talking about the village propositions there as well. So that's all I got. After the village elections are done, I'm going to change up my schedule, my social media schedule a little bit. I've been having a lot of trouble getting stuff done on the weekends like I used to, mainly because of a kind of a change in family structure, not change in family structure, family time and all of that. Weekends have been kind of harder to get things done. So I'm moving to a Monday, Wednesday, Friday schedule. Monday will be my weekly wonk. I'll start off the week with it. Instead of having it on Sunday, it'll be on Mondays. My commissioner in car will be on Wednesdays, starting again on March 27th. It will be the first time it's on Wednesdays. So I'll be doing it on Wednesdays from now on. And then on Fridays will be my Zoom with Zarni's, and that's my interview show. So it'll be Monday, Wednesday, Friday, all these special content things that I try to do. And I'm hoping to keep up that schedule for the rest of the year. I may do if it's before an election, I might do a special, change this up and do, have a commissioner in car on Monday or whatever. But that is what my plan is going into this very busy, 2024 election season. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, starting the week of the 25th. That will be when I'm moving to Monday, Wednesday, Fridays content. I got a few content scheduled before the village elections on the 19th. and then we'll go from there. Thank you very much, and enjoy your week. Have fun watching the Super Tuesday results today. The zombie primary in New York, that is presidential primary, is April 2nd. And it's actually not that much of a zombie primary right now, as Marianne Williamson restarted her campaign. So on the Democratic side, all three candidates that are on there are still having active campaigns as of right now. And Nikki Haley and Donald Trump have active campaigns on the Republican side, although there's two candidates, Vivek Ramaswamy and Chris Christie, that don't. We'll see if any of that changes after tonight. Tonight, about 14, 15 states are having their votes, so you might see some changes in this. So we'll stay tuned. We're always working busy, but we will have an election on April 2nd, no matter who drops out on both sides, Republicans and Democrats. In the meantime, March 19th, village elections in Baldwinsville, Fayetteville, Minoa, all run by the Onondaga County Board of Elections, and village elections in Marcellus and Fabius, run by those village clerks. Go to onvote.net to get all the polling locations and poll times for those villages, and to request a ballot by mail or go to the polling place on 2 weeks from today. Thank you very much, and enjoy your day. Bye-bye.